This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Hey, do you know what I really like about games?
What's that?
When they do things that are not like terrible, when they're very ethical about how they're dealing with their stuff.
I agree. I think being responsible when you design games and publish them is a good thing, right, Cam?
And I like terrible games and terrible people. That's all I play, really.
I got a stack of them.
That's true.
So like you like Vampire the Masquerade?
That's all I. That's it.
Oh.
Burn.
Did we say that out loud? My bad.
A little more fuel for the fire.
Well, with that, this is the 340th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast, where we're going to talk about ethical design and publication in gaming. It's a bit of a continuation from our episode from last week. And with that, my name is Chris.
My name is Phil.
I'm Camden.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
All right. Well, we're in the show. We're in our new digs.
I like it. This is Studio 5.
And that's my one thing for the day. Actually, it's me. I have moved. I have finished moving. And we have a new studio.
Studio 5 is definitely dope.
Right? It's really nice. You can't even see the one wall. Eventually, we might set up that way one of these days, where you can actually see the bookshelves with all the games and books on them.
Yes, like we'd be like other podcasts, like waving our bookshelves around.
Shelf porn.
Yeah, and strangely enough, like aside from this nice table that we can actually all sit around and like look at.
Excuse me.
We have like a TV that nobody can see that has the screen on it, so we can all see ourselves.
Right.
Yay.
It's awesome. And lighting. We have overhead lighting. Like the lighting's actually good.
It's crazy.
My favorite part about the stream is you can just see Chris's hands clutching the blanket from the bed episode art.
Yes.
Yeah, underneath.
He's all like,
there's like one square of space. Well, I'm gonna redo the overlay at some point.
Yeah.
There's gonna be an evolution of like rejiggering a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
The stream.
For safety's sake, we have the doors closed, so Podcat unfortunately can't enter. So Podcat doesn't kill Camden.
So yeah, Podcat is actually here.
Yeah. Although it wouldn't work with the table. It worked great at your old place with the couches.
Yeah.
Chris, we're super low.
Are we?
They're all saying that they can barely hear.
Oh, look at that. The thing reset itself. I will fix that.
Oh,
Give me 1 second.
Surprise.
Surprise! Yeah. So Andy's here. We can start now.
But I feel like that's probably going to be a lot better for everybody since I just boosted up the buy-in 1,500%.
Hopefully.
Something tells me.
Let's turn it up to 1,500.
Yeah, right.
Pump up the volume.
I didn't even realize
Pump up
this
the
amp went
volume.
up that high.
Beyond.
I thought it only went to 11.
Sorry, when I shut off OBS, it reset it. So that's a thing to remember. Like whenever I shut off OBS, I have to then go back and turn it back up to whatever it is, which is 1,500%.
Yes.
Because that is the level at which we drop knowledge. Like
1,500%.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've learned some more tricks about OBS and a few other things. So like the sound quality should be a little bit better this week.
Excellent.
Chris, you're still low?
Am I still low? I mean, I could just do that. Like I'll just get closer on the mic. I'll just turn myself up. I could turn myself up to 11. Turn myself up there too. Why not? All of the turning up.
Nice.
That's why we have a mixer. Thank you, everybody, for helping with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we talking about today? We should probably do one thing. I just did my one thing. Bob, why don't you tell me about yours?
One thing. Getting ready for Breakout, man. Getting ready for Breakout. I realized like a week ago, I think it was, that I did not anymore have a copy of Circle of Six to take with me to Breakout to play with people.
Really? Did you give them all away to to game publishers?
I gave the copy I had away to someone so that they could review it. So I didn't have a copy. So last night I sat down and printed out a fresh copy and printed, cut, punched corners, and started sleeving. I have to finish that up tomorrow and then pack and get ready. And I have to dig out a couple more things to make sure I've got my quiver filled with games to take with me. And
are you taking the actual quiver?
Yes, the actual quiver.
Cool.
Nice.
Which is a brilliant device from a company called Quiver Time. They're fabulous. I love it. And in fact, the sleeves that I'm using for this version of Circle of Six are sleeves that I got from Quiver Time as well. And they're really nice sleeves.
I think they've locked themselves in. They call themselves Quiver Time. Like
here's the
leave
thing,
you, like, a lot of room for product.
Interestingly enough, they've got pictures in the promotional space for the Quiver where they're showing people putting other stuff in the quiver. Like there's one picture where it's like, oh, you're going to a party. There's a bottle of wine inside it.
Oh man, give me 10 minutes with that thing.
Yeah.
I'll have like 100 things. I'll have 100 things you could pack into that.
So yeah,
thing.
there's
min-max
a
your
bunch of
quiver.
different stuff. So that's me. That's what I'm doing. Camden, what's up with you, man?
So I've been finding out how woefully ignorant about all things Kickstarter I am, and working hard to rectify that. So
it's kind of shocking, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, I think I know how little I know, and then you get into it and you're like, oh, well, it turns out that I overestimated how much I even, how
it. I'm with you. Like when Chris was ready, like Chris was the one who had to push me into Ironetta, and I was like, okay, I can only do this if I can figure out the math. And so, like, I made Chris, like, dump everything he knew to me. And then, like, I had to make a spreadsheet out of it. I was like, is this what it looks like? Because...
Yeah, I was the one who didn't just, like, back Kickstarters, but, like, I would relentlessly study how they were put together.
Yeah, Chris did the homework. And between that and Phil's fastidious nature of putting all the pieces together and that kind of thing, they did an awesome job on figuring out the model.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of like, it was a lot of like, okay, cool, like, all right, we've made books before, so like we know what those pieces are. But then there were like additional pieces. Was like, oh, okay, yes, but those have to go into the model. Like, oh, that it's got to go in there too. Oh boy, okay, yep. The other one that got us was, and it got us in Ironetta, but I think I fixed it in Avalon. Was I had a timeline for producing the book. And then forgot to put in a timeline for the parts of the book, all the little parts, like the cover, like the inside cover page, the backer list, so we wound up like having to scramble to do those towards the end of production. When like now in Avalon, I have those, like most of them are done except for the backer list, which like we timed when are we going to send surveys to get the thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying this sentence just to make you happy, but getting a project manager was the best decision that I made for this, because she keeps me on task. And, otherwise, this would not be happening at all.
Yeah, so. Your project manager is pretty cool.
Yes. So how about you, Phil?
I'm prepping for Breakout. So this weekend was all about updating Turning Point. So we brought Turning Point. Send and I brought Turning Point to Metatopia. We got some really cool feedback from our high test, and there was one structural thing that we wanted to add into the game, which is an opening and closing scene, which I think actually now makes the I think it actually really adds something to the game.
Really, who knew that an opening and a closing are essential to storytelling?
Well, the way we put it, the way we put it together is like now there's a scene prompt that tells you like, okay, for like new drug, you're in your doctor's office. Like, like first player is going to play the character, somebody else is going to play the doctor. You're going to set everything up right up till you make the decision. Then you're going to pause. Then you're going to go play the 5 scenes. You're going to figure out the decision, and then that's how the rest of the table learns the decision. Is you go back to that scene, and then the character says like, I don't want to take the drug. I can't do it, kind of thing.
Awesome.
2 things.
Yeah.
1, that's perfect.
Yeah.
2, Sun is telling me to hush because, I was making fun of you too.
Yeah. That's fine. The other piece that we got.
Send it if you want. You can just, smack me when you see me in a couple days.
It's fine. He didn't make that suggestion. He played the game.
That's true.
Twice. So the other thing that I had to do was I had to make some structural changes, because there were some things there were some wording changes on the template we wanted to make. And then there were some pieces that we got from feedback about putting all the stuff that has to get passed around, the cast list and the scenes, on one sheet when they were split over 2. So I like rebuilt the entire layout template and then was like, fuck it, I'm relaying out. So I relayed out all of the dilemmas that we have, the 4 dilemmas that we bring. So they're all relayed out. Like that was my all day Saturday, was rebuild said template, put everything back into template, all of that. So that's what I did. I am almost ready. Like I'm almost ready.
So close. So close.
Another day of printing. I just have to go to work tomorrow and print like Hydra Hackers and Long Live the Queen stuff, and then I'll be ready.
Nice.
All right. What about you, Babu?
That's it.
Oh, that's
everybody.
it. That's it.
Time
Forget
for
it.
some announcements.
Do it.
Hey, Iron Edda's like on Drive Through RPG.
Still out there.
You can buy the PDF.
We're not taking it
you can
away.
get the soft cover. You can get the hardcover. What is it? $30 for the soft cover.
Oh, yes, 30 POD.
35 for the hardcover POD.
Yep. That's
I forget
correct.
what the-
14,
That is a sexy looking book.
$14.95 for the PDF.
PDF. Yep. I finished the adventure.
You did.
I have to fix the adventure now that Sean told me all the things that were wrong.
Sean
with it.
edited the adventure.
But that's why you have editors.
That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow. That shouldn't take me more than tomorrow, I don't think, unless of course I see something. I know that the back end of the adventure is better than the front of the adventure as far as like the writing goes, because the first part was harder to write than the last part. So that's good. Yeah, you should go pick it up. It's a great
You
game.
should go
It looks
pick it up.
pretty. If you just like pretty books, that's why.
It's
That's enough of a reason to pick it up.
fiercely laid out by our lovely Tim Jones.
It's really good to have a professional graphic designer
Yes.
on staff.
Right.
Like,
Never underestimate the value of a
and by
great
professional, I
graphic
mean
designer.
like that's like his
Like, literally,
his
that's
day
what his
job
day
is
job
like he's a
is.
graphic designer too, right? Like, so that's useful.
He's it is pretty wild. Like, it's funny because I've seen the layouts for Avalon, and they're like it's interesting how he adapts to the style of the book,
Uh-huh.
right? Because Avalon's a little more OSR. That book is a lot simpler.
Yeah, it's black. It's mostly black and white. It's got iconography in it that is simple enough, but still very effective.
Right. Whereas Iron Edda has got like those cool textured pages and all that stuff. Like, but he didn't like he's not like just hammering one note, right? Like, he really fits it.
He saw some of the art pieces beforehand, so I mean, he had a feel for what he wanted to do. He kind of built it around that style, which is impressive. Yeah. Queen City Conquest 30-day sale is still going on. It's going on until the end of March, so it's a bit longer than a 30-day sale. I can announce right now that Jason Cordova is coming to the Queen City Conquest.
Nice.
He'll be flying in. We'll be picking up, and he'll be staying.
Love.
There's a few other people that I've invited. Also, Daniel Kwan
Yeah,
is coming to the Queen City Conquest.
He's great.
Yep. So Dundas West Games will be there. Oh man, like
Have you played his game?
Ross Rifles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ross Rifles
I was gonna say
actually I played it last year with Wen and Effie, and I think River Archright played in that game.
Nice.
It was a really fun game. Like,
I was gonna say because you love World War One.
I do. That's why I wanted to
I
play
know.
it. I can't wait to. I can't not wait to purchase Ross Rifles when it comes out. Like, I am so excited for this game. I'm beyond excited for this game.
Did everybody get their assignments for the breakout mentorship?
Yeah, I did.
I got the Mario Kart game.
Oh, cool.
nice.
That was my second choice. I got one of the abstract strategy games, which
nice.
works for me because I love abstract strategy games. So
Who got the Kaiju with feelings?
Jerry also played Ross Rifles with us at QCC last year. It was a fun game. I don't know. Are you mentoring?
No, they had extra people, so they might run an extra table of the PBTA game if they can find somebody. So I'll step in for that if they need it.
There we go. That's cool.
I'm terrified of board games. There was only one RPG.
We need to play board games with you to like desensitize you a little.
Yeah.
Like we're a much kinder, friendlier.
Dude, it's cool if you don't. It's cool if you don't like playing board games. I get it, right?
Yeah.
If you just don't like playing board games with board game like people, then we can assure you would have a better experience.
That's
we're
good.
much more.
I don't like the shouting.
We're not.
we
then
don't.
it's not. We're not.
You don't have
those.
to worry about that.
Yeah.
Not with us.
There's only one game we shout at, and we're not shouting at each other. It's that crazy.
Apocalypse Now.
No. What's the one with the where you're rolling the dice? The
Escape.
Escape. That game makes me crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
Camden. If you want the most crazy 10 minutes experience for a board game of your life, we'll play that. It's cooperative, and you can't have an alpha player because it's all real time.
and it's
there
nutty
you go.
because there's a timer on the table and it's going, and it's like
So you can just make your own choices.
you're just kind of yelling out, "I need help! I need help!"
yeah, somebody save me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm actually the same way. I am not competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, actually, I'm super competitive, so I can't play competitive games because it makes me like too tense. Like, I get no joy from it. So I'm like Mr. Co-op. Like, I like games where we all work together.
Okay, real quick, everyone. We have to stop for a second. So
Yeah.
Eric, the Weregator,
Yes.
the Lord of Beefness, he was thinking about like just ditching out of Chicago and coming to Breakout for the weekend, but prices were really expensive to fly to Toronto. But he didn't think to check prices to Buffalo. So if he actually did want to fly into Buffalo chat room, who could possibly drive him?
Well, let's see. Glenn and I are going up right now. The plan is Thursday afternoon before dinner, like 3:30 in the afternoon. That is flexible because Glenn's not working, and I technically took the day off, even though I told the boss that I was probably going to be in the office, depending. But because then I wouldn't have to burn the day. But yeah, if he ended up coming into Buffalo sometime Thursday morning or early Thursday afternoon, it's totally doable.
There you go, Wargator. That's what we do for the Misdirected Mark, folks. Love you all. Okay, cool. So where are we at? Okay, QCC 30-day sale. We have rooms for sale for Thursday night now. So if you want to come out for Thursday evening, if you're going to be a VIP or you're coming in from out of town and you need somewhere to stay, and like I said, they're pretty reasonable. They're $45 a night.
Nice.
So you get your own room. It's got a twin bed. It's a college dorm suite, so it's not the most luxurious thing in the world. It's not like a 5-star hotel or anything like that, but it's fairly inexpensive. You get a kitchenette. There's like a little living room area. 2 of the rooms share a bathroom, so there's like 4 rooms in each thing. There you go.
So are they all twin beds?
Yeah, every room has a twin bed.
Okay.
I'm not going to say anything if you folks show up and you want to take one of the twin beds from one room and put it in the other room. As long as you put it back when you're done. I don't care what
so
y'all
it's like Camp
do.
Weekend.
Yeah, it's like Camp Weekend. They're a little nicer than that, right? They're college dorms.
Yeah.
So,
Ange has a good question since we're on that topic of the rooms. Do you have to provide your own
no,
bedding?
they will have the sheets and things like
There
that
you
for
go.
everybody.
Sweet.
You might want to bring your own stuff because, it'll be whatever the college provides.
Yeah, it'll be like, 50 count
Yeah,
cotton.
if you have your own,
Like,
hemp.
You might want to bring your
Hemp
if
sheets.
you want something warmer than what they're going to provide, you might want to bring a blanket or a pillow. Or it's going to be summer. So.
I was going to say it's summer, right? Well, but it's a dorm, so also it's probably not air
I
conditioned.
think they're air conditioned.
Are
I
they
will
really?
ask.
What kind of college students?
Well, Damon's.
I went to a state school. No air conditioning.
They're also like not dorms like when I went to college.
Mhm.
Like they're like a suite. Like they're
Yeah.
Oh,
actually
I had a
nice.
suite in college.
Yeah.
I had my freshman year. It was 2 bedrooms, living room, and your own bathroom that the 4 of us shared.
Uh-huh.
And when I went from my sophomore year on, it was 3 bedrooms, 2 people in each bedroom, a larger living room, and a bathroom. Like it was still full of state furniture and twin beds and shit, but it was but it was nice. Like you didn't have to go to like the shower barracks or anything. Like,
Yeah.
You just had your own.
That's cool.
You had to manage that though. 6 people, 1 shower. Like we used to keep a container of water in the fridge. There was a certain, like in the mornings, you had a certain amount of time for your shower. Otherwise, that container of water got poured over the shower curtain.
Also, as far as food goes, like the menus, at least the rough menus of what you can get are now up on the website, so you can actually see what the food options are.
Sweet. And we did say before there's vegan and vegetarian options.
Yes,
so,
there's going to be vegan and vegetarian options.
Yeah.
And there's a nacho bar or a taco bar on Saturday night for late night gaming.
Kick ass.
Nice.
I'm sure I'll be running games late at night because I work third shift. So
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be messed up.
no one's gonna see me.
Vampire curse.
No one's gonna see me between the hours of like 9 in the morning and like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But I'll be there the rest of the time.
We'll do the Lady Hawk thing. Like I'll run in the daytime. You run at night.
Brief moment at
Oh,
twilight
man.
where the two of them meet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
I'm
I
looking
love that
forward
movie.
to that.
Yeah.
That right there. If you need a reason to go to QCC,
There you go.
that
Just that moment
is-
where we touch.
Yes.
Right before, like,
Right?
yeah. I gotta go.
We'll
I'll
even
see you.
film it. We'll just like stream it, film
Yeah.
it, like on the stream. Badges are 25% off, so now's a really good time to get in on your badge. And the guest list is only going to grow. We're gonna aside from the other local guests that we will co-opt, like Camden.
Mhm.
He's a guest, also, by the way, everybody.
I think I was.
I think the
announced.
article came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that came up too.
They get nice headshots, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Right?
I had them professionally done.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why they were
Yeah,
on.
they're
There
sharp.
you go.
They're I was like, shit, I gotta up my game. Like this is.
Well, we know somebody we could hire. Like we just hire Ange to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. But I mean, like, I gotta up my game. Like Cam's got really nice.
I don't have a picture that I like other than the one that is from 2002. I've got a headshot from my first anniversary with my ex-wife. I'm like,
Yeah, it was a while ago.
You have
right?
was
hair
a
in
long-
that picture. It no
I
longer
have
counts.
hair.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
can-
gray. I've got the goatee instead of the
Yeah,
full beard.
that's like false.
It's like-
That's like
yeah.
false advertising. Like,
I love the picture, but it's not.
that's not you.
Nope.
All right, let's move on to our main topic for the evening, which is the back room, where we're going to talk about, ethical design and publication. And guess what? There's actually a bumper for the back room.
Welcome to the back room, where we're going to jam about publishing. So let's get into the nitty gritty of making games.
Nice and simple, short and sweet.
So much better than when we just say like, "Hey, we're gonna go in the back room," and everybody gets all weird about it.
I know, right?
Starts X-carding us and shit.
Right. There's no X card on this
Oh.
table. I'm disappointed.
I know, right?
Yeah. So last week we were talking about positive game culture, and we asked the question, what is the responsibility of game designers and publishers to foster a positive culture? And so there was a bunch of stuff that we were absolutely in agreement about, and it kind of led to that larger discussion about the ethics of game design and publishing.
It was that question that we asked at the end that we couldn't really
It was
answer.
Camden.
That's
Camden
right.
tacked on to the question I put on.
He dropped the bombshell.
Yeah, it was
like,
good.
hey,
That's right.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you give me editing rights.
Uh-huh.
So we decided that would be a good topic to kind of tear apart and look at right now on its own show. And so we are going to start by having Phil, the official definition panda, define a few terms for tonight. So Phil, please.
Yeah. All right, let's just do a couple simple ones. So game designer, right? This is the person who designs the game and often writes the rules, right? They're usually the same person. They can sometimes be decoupled, but for sake of our discussion, the game designer is the person who just writes the rules to the game. The publisher then is the persons who takes that manuscript and makes it into some sort of media, right? A PDF, book, something like that, an app, whatever. We're going to focus on PDF and book tonight because we're going to stick with tabletop publishing, but yes, that's the publisher, and
makes sense
sometimes
since we're a tabletop publishing company,
right? But where this gets messy is it gets messy when things like, for instance, for One Child's Heart, Camden is both the designer and the publisher.
Yeah, that was a choice.
Yeah, no, it was an actual choice, right?
Yeah, it was.
But like for Iron Edda, Tracy was the designer, right? But Encoded then was the publisher.
It's a very different.
It's a different
situation.
right. It's a different situation.
It's actually not that different. It's just different in the kind of like, instead of all the responsibility being in the one person, it's split up between multiple people.
I mean, two entities wear hats instead of wearing one hat. But it is important because sometimes people get this confused because there are a lot of people who are designer publishers. And then there are times where there are people who are just publishers. There are times where people are just designers.
Yes.
So you get all of those, like mix and match.
For instance, Genesis of Legend Publishing is designer publisher for the most part.
Correct. Ken Hite
is
just a
designer.
Right.
And yet Modifius, at least Chris Birch, is for the most part just a publisher.
Yeah.
These days.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's the difference between those two. Ethics, right? I mean,
by the way, can I say that my favorite call out these days is to call out Jason Pitt on things? I don't know. I just like throwing things
as many
his way.
times as we can. We should call Jason.
I just
Pitt
call
out
Jason Pitt out because I like to.
I hope he's feeling okay. Is he in the chat room?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, I hope he's recovering well. He had a pretty nasty concussion for slipping on ice, which is a thing that makes me
twitch.
Yeah, and a concussion scares the hell out of me even more because banging up the brain box terrifies me.
Right. Yeah.
I broke my arm and I was like, well, after I got over the opioid part of it, I was like, well, it was painful, but I pretty much trucked along. But I watched Jason's texts about can't concentrate today, and I was like,
I couldn't if Jason Pitt wasn't at Breakout, then I'd be sad because I couldn't see Sloth hugs.
Sloth, right? or round 2 of the Great Poutine Debate. That'll happen again.
Nothing like arguing about heretical poutine.
Yeah, let's talk about ethics though. Ethics, the discipline of dealing with what is good and bad, and with moral duty and obligation. And I love like moral duty is like the phrase I really liked in this one, right? Like I think we're going to come back to that. I think we will hear that term a few times.
Yeah.
Reckless, right? Reckless is without thinking or caring about the consequences of an action. Negligent, failing to take proper care in doing something. And complicit, involved with others' illegal activity or wrongdoing. In this case, it's probably going to just be like bad behavior. Not necessarily going to be illegal, but I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, so we felt it was really important to use these last terms and define these last terms because they separate out a couple of things. Like intent, reckless versus negligent. Like you can be reckless by not thinking something through. I have been reckless many, many times in my life.
Yes, right. Your intent was good, but reckless in delivery, right?
Yeah. You are negligent by not taking proper care when you know you should. Now, I have very, very rarely been negligent in my life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's really important because if we try in the goodness of life to try to assume positive intent, a lot of times things happen recklessly. they're still wrong. It's just that the intent, like, was careless,
Yes.
not malicious.
Mm-hmm. And then complicit, it's that you are not the one who has done something wrong, but you went along with it. That's just like, in a lot of ways, it's not as bad. It can feel almost as bad because it's like, why are you just standing there watching?
I mean, if you are propagating a problem, like you are complicit. Like you didn't make the problem, but you also didn't do anything to fix it. Right? Like that's complicit.
So let's do some questions now.
Yeah,
that's always fun, right? So
I mean, let's do the over/under on how many questions we're gonna actually get.
So there's 5 questions.
Yeah, good luck.
I think the over/under is 4.
Okay.
So Bob, bet on the over/under of 4. So it's on. You're betting the under.
I'm going under.
I'm going
All
under.
right. Well, good luck. Good luck.
You asked the first question.
Yep. All right. Here's the first question. What are, and I use the phrase "some" because I don't think you can do this as a total list.
Yeah.
What are some of the ethical responsibilities of a game designer when designing a game?
Sure. So I think, and Phil, you're going to say some other things about this, so I tried to fill in. By the way, everybody, just so everybody knows, Phil went in there first and got in all of his answers, so that I was like trying to find ways to slide in things.
Yeah.
Benefits of writing the notes.
That's true.
And 2, I think I gave you guys like a day's head start. I was like, the core notes are up, and then I came back the next day and put notes in, but no one else did.
I was busy moving. Yeah. So presenting what your game is about and making sure it's not easy for someone to misunderstand the kind of stories the game is intending to tell. This is you need
Misdirected Mark, word scramble.
Thanks, man. So that's about your text, your flavor, your situation, and your setting. And I think all those can be very powerful, but it's your design, I think, that is the key for that, because your design can really inform some things. Because those reward and punishment cycles can do that for your game, and what is ethical and not, and what is ethical and good about your game.
Right. I mean, we've always said, like, if you want to see what your game is about, go count the pages for the different types of rules, right? Like, you can, right? Like, if your game has 30 pages of combat rules, no matter what you say your game's about, it's about combat.
So, I mean, we talked about vampire stories last time, right?
We did, because that's a super tricky topic.
Yeah. No, like, through the with the help of Blake Ryan Batman, our own personal Batman. So Vampire the Masquerade, the reason I think it's not very good about being a game about personal horror is because it doesn't do a lot to make you feel that horror in the game. Like, I think the humanity mechanics are very lackluster in that. And I'm talking about old Vampire.
Oh no, I'm with you.
It's a superhero game.
V20.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I won't say that it's exactly a superhero game. It has that feel to it because it has all those powers. And it makes just some poor attempts, I think, at doing the other things.
Oh, I mean, I do think that V20, and again, I say this having played a shit ton of V20 in the 90s, right? It very much embraces the power trip of being a vampire. Like, you get cool powers, right? Like, even the things that, like, your problems aren't always that problematic, right?
I wrote the wrong game in the notes. It wasn't Monster of the Week. It's Urban Shadows. Urban Shadows makes you take corruption because you can play a vampire, somebody who feeds on somebody. You can take corruption when you don't have consent from someone you feed on. So, like, that is actually a good mechanic, because if you take too much corruption, your character's just gone. So, like, it is punishing you by taking away your agency, or the threat of your agency, by not getting consent from somebody.
I think it's also acknowledging, like, you're bad.
Well,
Like, it basically says, like, if you're just going to start drinking people without consent, you're not really the kind of character that's supposed to be a protagonist in this game.
So when it comes to, like, I think all the things are important, but I think your design is the most powerful thing that you can create a play style. Cameron, what about you?
So I think it's important to tell your own stories, and I think that people bring a lot of important things to the table, and you have to be thoughtful and ask when you come up with an idea, is this my story to tell? And I think that a lot of culturally appropriative games would not exist if people would have actually stopped and asked themselves that. I want people to tell a lot of different stories. And we're all really interesting. Like, last week, Phil, you were talking about the experience of growing up in an Italian family and the things that you saw.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's super, super interesting.
Right.
I want to see that game before I want to see you make a samurai game.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's not to villainize anybody that does something different.
Right. But I think it is also acknowledging, like, so first of all, it's funny you say that, because I love samurai films, right? I love Chimbara films, right? I love samurai stories. But it is being aware, like, what I actually know about samurai culture, like, fits in a thimble.
Yeah,
right. Like,
absolutely.
Like, I should not make a game about samurais. Like, I should totally play a game that somebody else responsibly made about samurais, which is why I backed 1,000 Arrows.
1,000 Arrows, yeah, and you wind up with a better game because of the people who were involved.
Yep. Can I tell you a story that I don't think is actually well known?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this story or not, but so John Arcadian made friends with this comic book publisher, the indie comic book publisher, who had a game that they wanted to make an RPG for. And the comic book was about these superheroes who kind of get all their superpowers from, if I remember correctly, Chris, jog my memory because you read this as well, but it was like the gods of Africa.
It was. They were the gods of Africa were the ones that gave people their superpowers.
Right. And, you know, John, like, the publisher was like, oh, we're totally interested in making a game. And John, like, hit it off with them, and he brought it to us. And I was like, we can't make this game.
That's right.
Like, we either need to go find a designer, or we need to pass this opportunity off to somebody else. Like, we cannot make a game about African gods empowering, people to be superheroes.
And believe me, I wanted to make the game.
I love me some
superheroes.
And the comic book was great, right?
Yeah,
like, the stories were great, but
great.
it goes right to that thing where it was like, these are not our stories.
Yeah, we were sitting around looking at each other like for like weeks in a row. We're like, this just, you can't do this.
Yeah. It was so cool. And they were like, they were like, you can just take whatever art you want from the comic book. And it was like, like unlimited art budget, right? But it was like, and they were fine with it, but we were like, ultimately we were like,
we did not feel like we were the right fit.
Yeah.
Hey, bunch of white guys company makes game about African gods,
which happens regularly, but
right. But if we're talking about ethics in game, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Tell your stories.
Tell your stories, and I think that's where the depth and breadth, aside from the ethics involved and the responsibility involved, you also create a richer tapestry of what gaming is by doing that. So it's got its own benefits as well. So how about you, Chris? I'm sorry, Bob.
I'm going to actually defer to Phil because when I looked through the notes on this particular question, I couldn't really come up with anything other than
you could have been a jerk and just read Phil's points.
I could have read Phil's points, but I don't want to usurp.
Been like, yeah, that's right.
It wouldn't be ethical for me to take credit for Phil's words.
Wow,
so
look at that! Folding it right into
Before I pass it off, though, I just want to say one thing. You mentioned V20 before, which V20 is like a newer version.
Yeah. I don't know,
not the original Vampire.
I did actually play the original. Yeah, the old school.
There's a really good question in the chat room when we're done with this answer.
Okay,
cool. I was gonna say my answer was do no harm, right? Like this, like it doesn't mean that you can't have hard topics in your games. It doesn't mean you can't have uncomfortable content, but it means you need to do that with a level of consent. And there are ways, and we can talk about it in depth if we want to later. There are ways when you design a game. There are ways when you write the manuscript for the game where you are providing those moments of consent. Informed, enthusiastic consent, right, is the key to this, right? No ambushes, right? Like, you can't, like, I seriously, we joke about this all the time for GMing advice. Like, I've always said, like, don't be clever with your players, right? Like if you think you're being super clever, like, you're not. You're either not, or you're really gonna, like, you're gonna hurt people, like, because
we're talking about design and writing, right? Like, these are not literature novels. These are reference books that people need to understand the ideas pretty clearly and concisely. They're more like textbooks that are fun to read.
Yes.
So, yes, just be clear.
Yeah, and no ambushes. Don't ambush anyone in the text. Don't ambush anyone in an adventure where all of a sudden, like, this adventure seems to be on the surface, it seems to be very shallow, and then all of a sudden it's like this huge, like you uncover this whole thing that has to do with like rape and power control. It's like people, like you will hurt people.
Yeah.
Like if you want to put that in your game, and it's okay if you do, you got to put that, like you have to put your warnings at the front of the game that says like, hey, there's some content in this game you need to be aware of. Like, yeah. So that do no harm. Like you should not make games to hurt people. You should not make games. You should not make games that cut any group of people or people out of an experience. Like you should, like all of those things. Like you do no harm when you design.
Cool. So we have an awesome question in the chat room from Fables Folly, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is Kate.
There's too many good people in our chat room.
We have amazing people in our chat room. So the question is, so how can gaming companies made up of white men help bring marginalized people to the table rather than just keep making games about themselves?
Weird, we had this conversation at dinner.
Literally had that conversation at dinner.
Yeah. I will say that I'm going to say there's a hard part. I think there are times where I think the best. Chris said it best, so I'll let Chris say his part.
You can just steal my answer. It's fine.
No, you should say it.
Okay.
You should say your part first. I'll say mine after.
So, well, at dinner when we were talking about this thing, like we were talking about the comic book thing, right? And
we were talking about something else that we're not going to talk about.
We're not talking about it right now.
But,
it's not about being a publisher to somebody who's a designer. It's about being a partner with somebody, like coming to them and being like, look, we're not going to just publish this game with you. Like you are going for you. Right. You are going to be a partner with us on this journey. Like, it's going to be like, well, we have all this stuff. It's actually kind of what Jason Pitt said it in the chat room super succinctly. Like, we will just, we will have our resources for you at your disposal. Right. I mean, in the end,
as much and as little as you want to take
like,
of that.
This is not to put too fine a point on it, but like these things, we don't. The goal of publishing things can be to just make a fun thing that you want to exist in the world, but really a lot of times the goal of publishing things is to actually make some money off of it too. So there has to be some sort of business sense that goes along with it, but you can totally be ethical in doing that. And that is the partnership thing. Like, look, it's not just we're going to take your words and make a book out of it. Like, we're going to have you be part of this process with us the entire time.
Providing input and direction.
Especially since you're the designer, like, it's your creative vision.
Yes.
Like, we're just here to help you make your creative vision a reality. And, along with all that stuff, all the business things like that, you'll be right in there with us. Like,
we're providing the knowledge experience we have, but we want to partner so that your vision gets expressed. It's not our vision.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
So like, you have all the say. We will be there to help with the say, like, and, give the guidance that we can offer, and of course take everything that the designer has to give to the project. And then on the business end of it, like, make it really equitable and fair. Like, we're talking percentages on books and things like that, and like, we won't own the IP. Like, you'll own the IP forever. Like, only thing that we want is the publishing rights to this particular version of the book that we've made. So like, even if you ever want to make a second edition, like, we don't have that. Like, it's just yours. Now, and those are the deals that we've done with the people that we've worked with so far.
Yep. Now, I think that is fine on one level, right? I think that there is, I think that's fine if that's how designers want to come approach us. But I think the other part is, like, no secret sauce. Like, if you just want to come pick our brain about how to make a book, like, don't hoard knowledge, don't gatekeep. Right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
So even if we're not going to do a deal, even if we're not going to make a game together, if you want to come and see, like, how we figured out how we're gonna, how to pay for our Kickstarter, like, fine, we just share it with you.
I mean, I'll be perfectly happy to say right here on this episode, year 8 of this podcast is going to be a fair amount of that stuff, like us sharing our experiences and our knowledge that we have, so that people can utilize it if they want to.
But even to the point where if somebody came to us and was like, look, I don't want to publish a game with you, I want to publish my own game, but you guys seem to, like, do it correctly, could you just share your knowledge?
Yeah, we do that too.
Yes. Like,
we've done that.
Yeah, I just did it recently, actually, for somebody we know, which is fine. Like, I think that's the other part of it. Like, you can't. It frustrates me, and we've seen my tweet where I said, like, go make collectives, right? Like, go make collectives because this shit's hard.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it is. This shit's hard, and the frustrating part is that it's hard, and then, like, a lot of people are like, a lot of people are like, I got to do this whole thing on my own, and it's okay to actually do the work on your own, but you don't actually have to learn everything. Like, there's plenty of other people who actually know how this stuff works that should be actively sharing.
Yeah, it was hard to learn all this stuff.
Right. It was hard to learn it, and like we had a reasonable number of connections, and again, we're a bunch of white dudes. Like, it was, wasn't hard to actually get hooked up with a whole bunch of people, right, to do it. It's still hard. So I do think that's the other part. The other part of this is, yes, if somebody wants to publish with you, it needs to be a partnership and not we're taking your stuff and making it. And on the other side of it is to break down gatekeeping by just being completely transparent and available and share what you know and all that stuff.
So the next question, to follow up on what we were just talking about, and my answer really ties into this, was what are some of the ethical responsibilities of a publisher when publishing a game? And so very much in line with what you all were just saying is I think it's important to be purposeful and thoughtful with the games that you're publishing. And I think that comes with not only, because you might be designing your own games in some of these circumstances. Oftentimes you're going out. So what voices are you trying to lift and bring to the community? What different groups, stories, ethnicities, experiences are you bringing to games? What different types of games are you bringing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the commerce side of this and the ethics side are not mutually incompatible.
Ethics and money rarely align themselves. It's always you're trying to get to a zero sum.
Well, see, but I think that there are brilliant designers out there. There's brilliant designers of color. There's brilliant queer designers. There's brilliant people of all aspects, the entire spectrum of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that games get better when we feature more of those. And I think that if ethical responsibility is important to you as a publisher, particularly if you're a publisher that's coming from a place of privilege, then making thoughtful decisions and purposeful choices to expand that world is a excellent foundation to start with.
Yeah.
So
I think that's I think that's excellent.
Okay. So we'll move to you, Bob.
Yeah. Kind of not really on the same line, slightly tangential. But when you're a publisher, give credit where credit is due. Because if you've got people working on your project and you're not giving them any credit for it, this is published by Bob, and that's it. Those are your credits. If you've got artists that are working on it, you put their names in. You make sure everyone who's contributing gets their due. To me, that's.
I don't actually think that's on a different level. I think that
I think I meant from the kind of the
No. I think there have been people. I think there have been people who've been erased out of games by not getting the proper credit they were due.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that even extends past just the work that was done on it. If your mechanics came from were inspired by another game, especially if that game designer is, from a marginalized community, even crediting that.
Well, you go all the way back to D&D and all the women that were involved in the foundation and how few people know those women's names.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for instance, Turning Point's biggest mechanic, the heartstring, actually came from Avi, who was inspired by One Quiet Year. And her only request to me was, if you want to use that mechanic, please credit One Quiet Year in the manuscript. And I was like, of course, yes, but yeah, it's those kinds of things as well. Here's the thing about game design and publishing. We're all inspired and borrowing each other's stuff constantly. We are, by the way, also all cool with that. We do it constantly. So there are I think a lot of times, especially new publishers who are I came up with this thing on my own. This is my brilliant idea. I came up with it on my
no one's ever caught it.
Right. If you played any other game, it's doubtful you came up with this on your own. Own the heritage of your games.
Yeah.
Share that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. I think what I was fumbling to try and say was, it's a different kind of ethics.
Yeah, it is.
I guess is what I was, like we've kind of been like over here with, the triggering stuff and safety and inclusion and diversity and that kind of thing, and that was kind of slightly different form of ethics was, I guess, what I was trying to get across, and I didn't really, but important, nonetheless.
Don't steal and don't be a bigot. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the right corner.
Well, and I think, to tack onto that, right? Like, so pay people real money.
Yeah.
Don't, and I'd like to think we're over the don't do the shit, like don't make people do shit for exposure, but I'm sure somebody out there is doing that still.
They are.
I'll tip my hat to Jason. Jason pays the authors he works with very well. Jason does an exceptionally good job of paying authors.
Mm-hmm.
Really, better than industry average, and the industry average is awful. Like, the industry average is terrible, but I think Jason does an exceptional job. So I'll just call Jason out for being very ethical about how he pays people for their efforts. Oh, and that's the other one. Pay if you're gonna have sensitivity readers or somebody like to go through, like, you pay them too.
Yeah.
Like,
They're doing a job.
No free labor.
Yeah.
Pay everyone that does work.
Yes, no free labor.
Look at that.
Weird,
What you
right?
call it? I had to actually, with Kate in the room,
Mhm.
after Kate played Turning Point, Kate was like, I want to write a dilemma, and I'm like, great, I'll get you a contract. She's like, well, I don't need one, and I'm like, no, like, if you're going to write a dilemma, because it'll get used at some point, we will pay you to go write the dilemma. Like, no free labor, even when it's friends. Like, no. Yeah. Okay. So, what else do we have to say about this? Oh, I think, what was the last couple of things I was going to say about this? At the bottom of mine. When you are the publisher, I think you have to think about the greater audience, and two, you have to think at some level on the industry. And I'm not talking about protecting the industry, but I'm talking about, like, how do you make the industry better by example?
Yeah.
Right. Like, so how do you publish how do you do your stuff to make it more diverse, to make it safer, to avoid propagating bad behaviors, bad community behaviors, or bad behaviors in games, like going back to your thing, like, don't, like, as a publisher, don't let your designer glorify, like, non-consensual, rapey vampire stuff,
Or
like,
just let it slide through.
or let it. Well, that's right. So that's complicit versus right. Like,
I
don't
think
be
that-
complicit to that.
I feel that design is complicit, not intentionally. I mean, whatever their intention was, but I don't think
Right.
it's-
Even if they were reckless, like, you have to be like that one more check.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll always bang on Vampire the Masquerade. The game has got so many problems, and now it's even got more. So
I'm guilty as sin of.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Modifius does with it.
I'm guilty as sin for running it all through the 90s, and in all the bad ways, all of those.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
That's kind of off book. So we'll.
It's fine. I just see this thing where it says I want writing on turn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
you can. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah, you just tell us the dilemma you want to write. Like, yes.
All right. That's
Okay.
cool. So what? So if there was something different available while you were running all that Vampire the Masquerade, let's say that there was something that was more in line with what Urban Shadows is today. Would that have made a difference in what you would have chosen to play?
I'm going to be brutally honest. So we're talking about my 20s.
Mhm.
It's like a 50-50.
Okay. And
I
what would have made a difference?
I think what would have helped would have been, and you wouldn't even had to make a separate game, a call out box in Vampire that simply said, hey, vampire stories are often non-consensual stories that actually are a form of rape. Like, this game can potentially contain this content, and you need to think about how you're going to address this content in this game. Do you want to hardline it? Do you want to, do you want to skip it? Are you just going to ignore it? Like, whatever. If I had read that and had somebody explain it to me clearly, I likely would have been more sensitive to it. my girlfriend in high school had been date raped, so I was actually like I had lived through the fallout of what had happened, like, you know, of what sexual abuse does to somebody. And I think that if there had been a box that was like, hey, playing vampires and shit, like bloodsuckers is cool, but like this, you know, this topic is steeped in this game and you have to figure out what to do with it, I think I would have actually been more I would have figured something else out. And I probably would have leaned on something that Vampire had in it called blood dolls, which were like kind of consensual, like people who got off on, because they always describe in the original Vampire game, there's like a euphoria to being bit, and that there were some people who kind of like fetishized that. I could have leaned heavier on that blood banking, whatever. But I don't think I was, at my 20s, I don't think I was culturally aware enough. Like, I think I was just, like, I was still kind of a dude. And I was kind of tripping on it. Like, I was tripping on the power part of it, you know, being badass vampires and that kind of thing. I was definitely the guy who thought that the bad guy in Blade was totally cool, right? Like, these people are our food, right? Like, yeah. I mean, fair. I wasn't a great, like.
No, I mean, yeah, it's honest, and I appreciate that. I mean, there's no.
I mean, I wasn't, you know, the person I am now is not who I was in my 20s, right?
Hopefully none of us are the person that we were when we were in our 20s, unless you're currently in your 20s.
But I think if that game had called it out and made me look at it like that, I think I would have been like, oh, maybe I do have to give that some thought. And if it had given me some tools, like, hey, here's some questions you should talk about with your table. Or here's a thing you could do.
Awesome. Thank you. So, did we skip you, Chris?
Yeah, that's okay. Because there's a more interesting question. So, the stuff that we've been talking about has been rather interesting, and this is also from Fable's Folly. But like, what are the actual things that we can do to create a space for people to have the same power levels as white dude publishers, and how do you ethically engage the community to make that happen? I have a few things that I can say about that. One is you have a podcast where you constantly are saying we will help you and giving that advice and doing those things for the community in a positive and ethical way, which I think we've done that for years. And I would think the RPG Panelcast does that too. Like, these are spaces that provide this information for people. I think that's all good and useful. I think being available to being a mentor and things like that, and making people know that that's a thing out there in communities. It's the tricky part about being the white guy with, you know, all the privilege is there's a fine line that you have to walk between forcing yourself in a situation and just being available.
Thank you. That's
always the hardest part. So you just like let people know without being forceful that, like, I am available. This is what I can do for you. Take me up on it if you want to. It's okay. And then you have to say that like 1,000 times.
And if no one answers,
then that's fine.
Yep.
Like,
I've struggled with the exact same thing. Like, I would love nothing more than to help other people figure out how to do a lot of this stuff. Like, not even just like the Kickstarter part. Like, I'm a project manager. I'm a productivity nerd. Like, I am really good about the psychology of work, right? Like, I mean, people like Senda will say it. I think Chris can attest to this as well. Project management is only like 20% putting shit on a calendar and 80% of understanding how people work, the psychology of how they work, and how to motivate them to get work done. And that's knowledge I could share, but it is that fine line where it's like, I would love to share that knowledge. I'm not going to like go kick down, like, you know, I see this all the time because I see people on Twitter posting things like Dungeon Commander. Like, I would love to know Dungeon Commander more, right? Like, and I see some of
they're great.
Yeah, and I see some of the things they say, like some of the struggles, and I'm like I could, but I take the vampire rule, right? Like, you got to invite me in.
Yeah.
Like, I won't come busting in on your tweet and be like, well, actually, right? Like,
the last thing you want to do is that.
What you really need to do here, right? Like,
busting like Kool-Aid Man.
So it is, and I don't want to make it sound like a plight, but I think that
it's not a plight. It's just the reality of the situation.
No, but I don't want to sound like I don't want to make it sound like pity, but like I think the real challenge for white guys, for lack of a better term, white guys who want to help is that you can't do anything. You have to be available and sit on the sideline.
And you can even offer, but if you're told no, then that's okay.
Exactly. I'm even like
it's like dating. It's like flirting.
Yeah, but it's like this really fine line, because you don't want your offering to come off as
strong and jerkish.
as well, actually. Whereas like there is nothing I would love more than to help. There's nothing I would love more than help people with stuff like that.
What's that? There's that comic about flirting. Like, is it okay to flirt or is it not okay to flirt? Like, there's like a whole flow chart of like, like, should you say this thing to a person? Like,
Right.
it's the same deal. Like, if you don't really know the person that well, then you probably shouldn't just like offer yourself out
Vampire
there.
rule, man.
Right? It's
Gotta
the vampire rule.
invite
But
me in.
somebody who's a decent friend or somebody who's closer to you, like you can be like, I could help you with this. You know me, and if you don't, that's okay. Like you can have different conversations with people depending on how well you know them. But like, so the other things that you can do is like we're a publishing company that is starting to make a reputation for themselves for being decent at what we do.
Yep.
Right. Like them being like, okay, like if you want to come and work with us, that way, stating it that way, we are open to that. Heck, you could do a lot of things as a company. Like, look, we are looking for people to work with us. We're having sort of like an open call for a game of some sort, but we're only going to take it from these kinds of people because we want the diverse portfolio of games that you're talking about. It helps the community. It does all of that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a well-known, it probably embarrass him, so I'm not actually going to use his name, but there's a well-known designer in the tabletop industry who I would say like every 2 or 3 months I get an email from another publisher out there in the world or somebody that's designing a game and said, hey, Camden, I got your name from blank. And he has such nice things to say about you. I was wondering, do you have any interest in doing work? He does that behind the scenes quietly. He's always trying to push and uplift and really support people around him.
Another wonderful, excellent way to do that. Like, yeah, like I do that a lot too. I'm a little bit more public about it because I have a podcast, right? So like,
I mean, and this is a very different vein, but just equally as valuable.
Yep. So like, I think that's also super wonderful for people that are out there that can do that, especially if you have some semblance of a name or reputation in the industry to help give other people a push. So,
amplify the voices of the people who don't have the privilege or the avenues that we do to do the kind of thing that we are talking about.
Yeah, there's some kick-ass designers out there, even just like from around here. Like people should be hiring Jen Adcock to do stuff. Like I'm glad that everybody's hiring Kate these days to do things. Like she's an excellent writer and designer. Like
I did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's like there's tons of people like you too. Like I mean, if we're talking about marginalized people, like Daniel Kwan, like tons of people are hiring him these days though to do things. So like those are the kind of designers that I like to see get their work out there and get the notoriety that they deserve. They're excellent at what they do. There
are a lot of talented people out there that need an opportunity, and so anything that all of us can do is important.
So to be clear, I'm going to stick with my vampire rule, but for seriously, if you're a marginalized designer and you're like, boy, I can't figure out how to wrangle my stuff or whatever, like drop me a line. Like I will happily share ideas, techniques, project management, productivity, like all of that stuff. Like, I have done it before. I will happily do it again for people. No charging, no nothing. I will happily just share what I know. So, okay. I like Kate in the chat room tonight, keeping us on our toes.
All right, let's go. Well, first, let's take a quick little break. The CypherSpeak podcast is an engaging discussion that covers the evocative and inclusive settings of the Cypher system. Darcy and Trey are entertaining co-hosts who offer game advice and ideas for use in your games. You can catch them in what would be their 50th episode pretty soon.
Yeah,
50 episodes is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? I'm looking forward to that. So that's another great show on the Mr. Rick Mark podcast. Is there anything else in the chat room that I missed?
No, I think we're good for now.
All right, so Phil, what's the next question since it's in black?
Yeah, thanks. You don't have to actually call out the colors of the thing. I know which one I read from.
Are you sure? Sometimes with these giant pauses.
Yeah, no, it's fine. All right. This one now we're going to drill into a couple more specific things. So considering that safety tools exist in the world, when does a designer and or publisher need to include them in their game?
I'm first. Neat. So designers, I think they should put whatever safety tool actually helps assist with the play of the game. If it's unlikely that there's a problematic content piece in the game, then I always feel that lines and veils and the X card are always very solid fallbacks to have for reference, at least. Heck, even in kids' games, I'd like to see these things put in, if for no other reason, to help educate the younger generation to safety tools. As a publisher, I think the publisher should be the checks and balances to the designer when it comes to safety tools. They should look over the game, and if there's something that is like missing or there would be useful for that. And if nothing else, at least what I said, lines and veils in the X card, then those things should be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling. Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to, as a baseline, you have to have at least a conversation about safety, because you never know what's going to come up at the table. If you think the content of your game is all pretty moderate and like, oh, there's nothing triggery in here or anything, like everything's cool, everything's fine, what could possibly go wrong?
I'll interrogate the hobgoblin.
Yeah, something comes up at the table. Next thing you know, it's like, uh-oh. So, you should have something, at the very least, some form of safety tool that you can discuss in the beginning of the game, session 0, right out of the gate. So if you're designing a game, tell the people in the game when you're making the design decisions, like, hey, this game is going in this direction. This is the vision we have for this game, but who knows? Tables are full of diverse people with diverse backgrounds and diverse experiences. You have no idea what someone may freak out at, what someone may get upset about. So you really need to put something in there. Again, there are many different forms, but you have to pick something and be at least hey, here's something that you can do in your game to handle safety if you run into an issue.
Can I just short answer the thing? When does a designer and or publisher need to include them in their game? Always.
Always.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, everything else is
I think there's
an
different
iteration on that.
I think there's different levels.
Sure, of course, but like when? Always.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think we've reached a point in gaming design where we've crossed the threshold where not putting safety in is
It's just.
Is it negligent?
What's the point? Yeah, it's negligent.
Yeah, it's negligent.
Yeah, it's negligent.
If nothing else,
negligent.
at the very least, it's negligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, Camden.
All right. So I think that I think the bigger question is, how can we design a structure for safety inside the mechanics of the rules?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what the next step. And
High five. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I love it when your safety tools actually help your game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that thoughtful design about safety inside of the core mechanics is really where we should be pushing things instead. I mean, XCard is great. It's a real-time consent tool. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect.
It's not perfect.
But having that from a core level, I think is what you can do. And I think that setting expectations in every level of the text for the type of game, what sort of a baseline of humanity for people who don't understand it, for what type of story we're telling, and what options you have and how those mechanics feed into that. I think setting that expectation at every level is incredibly important.
I mean, Vampire might be a good game if it did that.
It might be. It
might
be
a better
Urban
game.
Shadows.
Yeah. I'll tack on to all of that, right? Yeah. I think that the amount of I think you always put safety in. I think the amount of words you commit to it has a lot to do with the quote threat level. I say threat level, but what the potential chance of this game is to break safety. Like Bob said, any game can break safety based on play. So do you need a paragraph that says, hey, go get the X card, here's the link to the X card, right? That may be for something fairly, I don't know, run-of-the-mill action-oriented, hey, look, doubtful this game's going to break any safety content, but you should always have an X card at your table or always do lines and veils or something like that in a little breakout, in a paragraph, something like that. Something like Turning Point, where the game's specifically designed to play on bleed. Like, there's a whole chapter dedicated to safety, and it's a pretty rigorous chapter by word count. Like, I think it's like, oh god, I think it's not even without Kate's piece, it's like almost 7,000 or 8,000 words on what the safety tools of the game are. They're not optional. There are safety tools built into the game. The procedures of setting up play does 2 lines and veil checks, one at the beginning and then one after you've done all the background questions and made the character. It comes back and says, hey, real quick, based on everything you've talked about, is there any other lines and veils you want a quick setup? Like, it even talks about, like, this game is about a culture of safety. Like, you are to, like, we can't make you be safe, but the intent of this game is for you to take care of each other while you play this game, right down to there's a warning: don't spring this game on strangers. Like, don't show up to game night and be like, oh, hey, I got Turning Point. You guys just want to play this? Like, ask for enthusiastic consent. Like, hey, this game's about, like, making tough emotional decisions. Or is everyone up for playing that tonight? That kind of thing. So I do think there's a sliding scale, right? I think the answer is safety always, but I think how much word count you have to dedicate to safety has a lot to do with the content of your game.
Yeah.
So there's a question in the chat room about
is it Kate?
No, it wasn't actually. Strangely enough, if where you should put your safety tools in your text.
Should they be up front, in the back, both, whatever?
So from developmental editing, like, I think they should be wherever it is most beneficial to the text. Like, it differs from thing to thing, right? Like, and you might have to break it up and put like little bits in the front so that people.
It shouldn't be Appendix S.
No,
right.
It should be wherever it makes the most sense and has the most impact in the book, and that varies from book to book. But I mean, a pretty good general rule is put a little bit up front so people know that they exist, and then a more blown out area somewhere later in the text so that it can be actually effective.
See, One Child's Heart starts with safety.
Well, your game is super bleeding.
Yeah, exactly.
But right? I mean, but that is the first one of the first things I hired somebody to write for me too.
Yeah, I mean, if I was developmentally editing your book, I would have put it in front too, because that makes a lot of sense.
Safety is, I think, chapter 3, and the other 2 are like, this is a high level introduction about what this game's about, and this is where this game came from, and then safety. And in fact, the thing that we hired Kate to write, which Kate's going to write for us, is not about safety tools, but about what happens when safety breaks. So that there's actually a section like, okay, you did everything you were supposed to. You used all the tools and everything else. Somebody still had somebody was in distress during the game. What do you do?
Yeah.
Because we make a lot of tools, and and again, the X card's fantastic, but it is it is imperfect in its design, which is a whole other soapbox about the idea of a full 360 degrees of consent. But part of it is what happens. Like, we a lot of us talk about what to do to make games safe. We don't always address as designers what to do when something goes wrong.
So my point about my comment is, like, if my safety tools are built into the core of my game, the core mechanics of my game, then my safety tool stuff should be in the core mechanics section of my game, right? Like it doesn't need to be in the front or the back. It needs to be where it appropriately lands. So that's what I feel about that. Let's ask the next question.
Okay.
Hey, guess what? It's question 4.
4. Look at us go.
Oh, over under.
And we actually got an extra question.
Yeah, even with Kate trying to mess up my over under bet.
That's right. So
thanks, Kate.
How as designers and publishers can we make games around problematic content? So vampires, racism, sexism. Harlem Unbound is a great example of a time period and problematic Cthulhu content. So what can we do to make sure that we're not hurting people with our designs? Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, for starters, and I'm by no means an expert at any part of this, but I think that you do not celebrate the problematic content in your game. So you do not play it up or make it awesome or make, doing it awesome. And, there's a thing, and somebody once asked me, would I ever write the other half of Hydro Hackers about playing the Water Authority busting Hydro Hackers from stealing water? And I was like, no, I'm not going to write a game about fascists suppressing, people's basic survival needs.
Yeah. No, thank you.
No, that's awful. And I used to have this game that I loved, and I talked about it a lot, which was Corporation. But in recent light, I have a lot of problems with the way Corporation is laid out, because it glorifies being agents of these horrific corporations. And while 10 years ago I had no problem playing that game, I look at it now and I'm like, oh yeah, I can't play this game. I can't run this game. I feel gross. I feel gross propagating the ideas of exploitation and rampant capitalism, all that stuff. So I think that's my first tip, and I think it's overly simplistic because, again, I don't feel like I'm super awesome or knowledgeable in this area, but I think that you have to first start by not making these things feel awesome in the game.
So as we did last week, and Kate beat me to it, Thanks, Kate. What about Bluebeard's Bride then?
I think Bluebeard's, so again, because I'm no expert, right? So Bluebeard's Bride, I think, is very responsible about how it does it, right? So it addresses it, but it also doesn't say, like, it doesn't say that Bluebeard's awesome, right? Bluebeard's the fucking monster in that game, right? Like, everything that happens in Bluebeard, there's never a point in Bluebeard's Bride where it's like Bluebeard turns out to be really cool in the end. Like, you hook up with Bluebeard and live happily ever after. I'm pretty sure that's not an ending in the game, right? No, I mean, like, you either, what is it? You're either dead or you're imprisoned forever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean,
it doesn't celebrate Bluebeard being an abusive asshole.
No,
right? Like,
it's a tragic fairy tale.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think Bluebeard's Bride sticks to that same line. It does not celebrate what anything about Bluebeard.
No.
The game's got a lot of things going for it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, this dovetails into my point.
Sure.
Bluebeard's Bride has a clear emotional intent. There is a specific design intent, and the mechanics in the story all support that.
That they do.
And and I think that is one of the ways that you really avoid a lot of problems when you are dealing with potentially problematic content, is to have a real clear emotional intent and understanding the power dynamics involved in being a PC, whatever position that is. And then, what story are you purposefully trying to tell with that?
Mm-hmm.
Consent, right? So be purposeful and keep asking for consent along the way.
That game also, I think, highly benefits from the people who designed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, if that was designed by other people, especially like a bunch of straight white dudes, that would have been a harder sell.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes back to the beginning about, are you the person that should be telling this
Absolutely. Story? I mean, but you can, like, it's a really good example of how to do a game that deals with really difficult content in a way that is responsible and ethical.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Bob, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of picked up something that you had in your part of the notes, and basically it's do the homework. Get excuse me. Sorry, is there still coffee?
Oh my lord, he's dying over there.
Oh no!
He's
all of a sudden
destroying his vocal cords with caffeine.
No. Yeah. Do your homework. Get input from diverse sources. Don't just run your own show and live in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Get the input.
Yeah, I guess because you may think you've done your due diligence. Like, I
read a bunch of stuff on the internet,
and I thought about it a lot.
That's right.
Yeah,
I thought about it a lot. I didn't talk to anybody else about it because I'm hiding my design. I don't want anyone to see it. Right?
That's right. You
got to sign an NDA when you back this Kickstarter to get these rules
because it's so clever.
Right? Yeah, I agree. Right? Like you could be in a hole. Right?
Yeah.
Like, also recognize when you think you're living in a hole.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what is due diligence? Like best practices specifically? I'm just parroting Kate now. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
Oh, I mean, I think if your due diligence is you find somebody who actually knows something about that problematic content and you get them to read it. Like if your game is about, if your game's about trauma, you find somebody who's an expert in trauma and you like get them to read through it. Like you can't I'm not a therapist. I can't, I can't judge that.
I mean, Camden, you wouldn't talk to a therapist about your game, didn't you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. As a matter of fact, every profession that's in there has been looked at by a person who works in that profession.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah.
So like that is a perfect example of doing your due diligence.
Yep.
That is one of the ways that you can do your due diligence. Also, doing a whole bunch of research. We're finding people with doctorates that know this stuff. Like that's what you did. Like
and hiring people to write things that maybe you shouldn't.
I mean,
in the middle of all
I mean, I'm my 2 games out design is Long Live the Queen, right? Which is all about kick-ass women spies in the 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
The amount I actually understand about the gender politics of the 1600s fits in a thimble. Like the idea is cool, but there's going to need to be a whole bunch more people who kind of help that setting come to life.
Or a whole bunch more research on the 1600s by like reading books by people who wrote that are knowledgeable about the subject.
Yeah, and even
it's
then,
a lot of in a lot of ways similar to going and talking to them. There's
Right.
more than one way to get around it. That's why people that have doctorates write books and do podcasts and things like that. So we
Right.
can go do the research also.
but the thing I'm always nervous about
you
is
should always show it to somebody. At
right.
some point.
The thing I'm always nervous about is if it's even worse if I've done my research, because if I've done my research, then I'm like totally convinced I'm right, and like I need to not be right about this, right? Like I need to do my part, right? I need to do my part to be responsible, not make the person who has to do the sensitivity reading do like a shit ton of work because I couldn't be bothered to put anything sensitive, to handle that sensitive content. But at the same time, I do think like somebody outside of me has to be like, okay, I've read this and here's where you're wrong. Like now and not fight it.
Yeah.
I think that's the other part, because I've heard those stories where people have done sensitivity readings and then publishers come back and they're like, well, maybe that's right, but
If someone who knows
Right.
better tells you something, you believe them.
yes.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary, a whole nother subject about flat Earth people, but
I hear those are fascinating because they're just so fucking crazy.
yeah. But I mean, one of the scientists was talking about the fact that people, when they go into a situation believing that they are 100% right, what they're doing is just looking for facts to support that narrative.
Yeah.
Because there's no room for anything
Yeah,
else.
they're not interested in the dissenting opinion.
Yeah.
They're just looking to back up their own.
Yeah, you throw away everything that doesn't fit into that, and you mold whatever's left over.
And I think I mean, not to parallel any of us to flat earthers, but I think when you are like so in love with the design concept,
I don't know. I feel like I should just X card you right now.
no, when you're like so in love with the design concept, like you don't want somebody to come back and tell you like, oh, by the way, like that you can't publish that, right? Like that setting is super problematic. Like you think it's awesome, but here's all the reasons why it's not. So what you wind up doing if you stay in a bubble is that you find all the pieces, like you said, like you flat earth it, right? You find all the pieces that justify your piece, and you're like, no, see, it's fine. Like they totally had a voice in the 1600s.
The
like,
only
totally
thing you
cool.
should do if you're having that moment where you're not sure you agree with your sensitivity reader is like, okay, maybe I'm crazy, and go get another sensitivity reader.
Yes, and if
to
both of
confirm.
them say it, right,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
shut up. Yeah.
And that's only if you're going to be that stubborn.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
don't be stubborn.
If you went to hire an expert, believe the expert. It's like if you fought your editor over sentence structure.
All right?
Like, no, that's
essentially what this person is doing. They're another kind of editor.
yes, they are another. We actually should stop calling it sensitivity reading.
Yeah,
We should call it something. I don't know what the good word is, but it is editing.
It's
something
kind
editing.
It's a kind of editing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just another
I mean,
editor.
it's content editing, essentially.
Thank you, because thank you, because that's how we're gonna start crediting that.
Content
going
editor?
forward.
Yeah.
Content
I don't. Yeah, if content doesn't make it sound like it's, I guess that's right. It is content editing. Whatever. That's I want editor now. Editor's better than reader. Reader makes it sound like they weren't authorized to do anything. Editor is a much more empowered title.
I agree. We're going to
Ethical
call
responsibility editor.
What's that?
I said ethical responsibility editor.
Sure.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something. Add an extra word. I get paid by the word.
Something that makes Phil not sound like, reckless.
So, last question.
Yo,
What?
How did we do that?
What happened?
we did a good job tonight.
What's going on?
Even with Kate, like, adding 7 questions. Kate, I don't think you understand this because you weren't here early, but, like, we do, like, an over-under on these things.
Did not think we were going to
And
get
the
through 3
over-under
of
was
them.
4, so now we've hit the over-under.
But even better, because Kate's questions dovetailed so nicely with ours.
they
It's
worked
awesome.
really well. It was a joy.
I think I jumped questions before when I answered. yeah.
How is game designers and publishers do we increase inclusivity in our games? Philip.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird.
Philip?
Yeah.
No. Are you my mother? Like, be like one of like 3 people who call me Philip.
I know, right? That's so bizarre.
Yeah. I think as a designer, you have to. I mean, you got to work it into the words and into. So, you would like to work it into your setting, but even things like your examples, like your play examples, have diverse people in your play examples. Have diverse NPCs. And a lot. And while doing that, like, don't make them one note. Like, I don't know, Kim, you explained it best a couple weeks ago when it was like, well, they're, yes, that person's Indian, but they're a cop.
Yeah.
Like don't
absolutely.
don't overdo it, right? Like
That's right.
But do have that representation. Like if you start writing your example and you realize that everyone that you just wrote the players you wrote the examples for are either all dudes, all white, or whatever, like stop, back up, change some names. It helps. It actually, I think there's I think there are a group of people who think that doesn't make a big difference, but it does make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as somebody who grew up never seeing somebody like themselves represented in the games that I played, especially on the cover or anything, it makes a huge difference. And I mean, we're seeing that in all manner of media now.
Yep. And then as a publisher, it is about diverse teams, right? It is about finding, and I think this is the hardest part, right? I think this is the hardest part is finding artists who are diverse and just, finding your team that's got diversity, as you're building it, because it is going to make a better product. Like you're going to get more experiences combining and things like that. So your content editors, your artists, and in your art orders. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing where we've been very fortunate. John Arcadian, I think, is exceptional. He has been consistently exceptional. And actually, I mean, I learned it from him about like really diverse art orders. I love it. Like I don't think everybody's ever seen them, but the Hydra Hackers, when Hydra Hackers was a Fate game, they were a set of pre-gen characters, and John did an exceptional job of making sure like they are very diverse characters, so that the artwork for them is very diverse, and I love them. Like, there might be, I think, a white guy, one. I think maybe not even a guy. Just one white person.
One white person.
But that was a thing John was very conscious about. Like he was like, okay, stop. He's like, and I remember him doing this. Do you remember the meeting? Like he was like, okay, stop. Here's what I want to do, and he like made a list of like,
I remember,
like these are all the diversity elements we want in these art pieces, and started putting them together until he came up with, okay, these are the characters. Now I'm going to go write up art orders and find imagery and stuff like that for them.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was blown away because I was like, what? Like,
this is possible.
And then I was like feverishly mentally writing notes like, oh shit, like, good job, John. Like,
well, that's good. You saw something, it impacted you, and you want to recreate it in a positive way. That's awesome. So I'm going to jump in here. I think that from a design point of view, and it's something I mentioned earlier, tell different and personal stories. So, I mean, we all have interesting things about us and our families and how we grew up and where we come from. Tell those stories. And as a publisher, be thoughtful and purposeful in your hiring practices as well. And who are you bringing in? Look at the list of people that are writing on the books. Look at the games that you're choosing to publish, and make a thoughtful decision about that, and create a portfolio that represents the actual world that we live in. So that's my 2 cents.
My answer is something we've already talked about. Just do your homework, right? Like I could just parrot that once again. We've talked about it a few times at this point, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and if for some reason your team is whitewashed, unfortunately, you should still go do the work, do the research, engage with people who are not, especially if you're working on a property that is not, white European centric, like get the opinions and input from other people from those cultures. It's important. I mean, the example that I had was like, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, I don't know if anybody here else has watched it. It's such a good show. It's a very good blending of like Eastern and Western sort of animation traditions. There was a lot of white people, a lot of Asian people that worked on that show, but those people that were in the higher level echelon of that, they went and they did their homework. They talked to martial artists to get the styles to be right. They took the time to actually work with those people to have them. A lot of all those scenes that you see in that show are filmed first before they're animated, and then the way the animation works is that a lot of the storyboard stuff gets sent to animation shops in Korea, and sometimes those Korean animation shops would take chances and do things that necessarily weren't on those storyboards. And when those things happened, the lead team was like, "Oh, that's awesome! we're going to keep that in. Also, let's go over to Korea and talk to these people, realize that they're also artists and creators too, and start hiring some of them to be on our writing teams.
Mhm.
So that's all stuff that happens. So those are the kind of things that you can do. Those are also the kind of things that you can do when you're in those positions of power, when you have people working for you. Like, well, find the talented people and the people that deserve those chances, and then bring them up.
Yep.
So like that is a good way, a good thought to keep in your head. It's kind of what you were talking about, being thoughtful with your hiring process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yep.
That's
And I jumped questions before when I answered that last time with doing the homework based on what Chris said. I spaced out because I was keeping track of the chat room, but I will throw in another question from Kate because
Yes.
how are you personally taking ethical actions to end gatekeeping that isn't just talking about your company?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question.
so. So one of the ways is, I mean, I do some of the things that Camden was talking about. You know, talking about other, like, you talk about other people who deserve chances.
Mhm.
Well, I do that, like, not just on the show, and
Yeah.
with other people too. But I mean, I don't talk with as many designers these days as I used to because I'm busy most of the time with my, trying to live my life, unfortunately,
Mhm.
which makes me sad. Like, I really miss those days
You
when I
also
would
work
actually
a second
engage.
shift. It's hard for
Yeah, that's
people
true
to
for
find
everybody.
you in your
Yeah.
vampire life. I mean I won't name names, but I had coffee with a female game designer, local female game designer who had questions about the industry, Kickstarters and stuff like that. Just and was happy to donate my time.
Mhm.
Like so I mean I will. It's, I guess the hard part is when you're a white dude, sometimes you don't see the gatekeeping because nobody's gatekeeping you, right?
Mhm.
Like, but like I would, so if you see it, you need to call it out. Like that's the ethical thing to do. Like you need to do the thing where you tell your peers, like, do better.
Yeah, that's the thing about not being complicit.
Right? Like
Don't be complicit.
Yeah. I just don't always see them.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like I feel like that's a cop out, but like I don't always see them. But like if I saw them,
Also, like when I see Kickstarter projects or whatnot that have people that are not, that don't look like me on them, that are especially ones that are interesting to me, like those are the ones that I tell people about. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's a good way to do it too. I mean, for what it's worth, whatever influencing power that I have, I try to use it to help. Especially when I know the audience that I have. Like I'm like, oh, I can maybe give this Kickstarter 10 to 20 backers. I'll just go and talk about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know when I see stuff on social media where people are promoting people in the RPG community and elsewhere from marginalized communities, I try to boost the signal on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean there is a way to use your platform. Like I retweet. I mean there are certain people I like to retweet often.
Mhm.
Dungeon Commander is one person who I
Mhm.
like to retweet. They have the things they say on a consistent basis are really good. Like so I try. I mean I think that's one way to help do that. Right? It's that same thing Chris is saying. Like if my retweeting it will get more eyes on it because I retweeted it, good.
Mhm.
Like I will use my platform like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there are a lot of opportunities. Like if you go through my social media, there is very little. I mean, there's like pictures of me. There's some personal stuff that's going on in my life. It's like 90% less about the things I'm making than it should be probably. But it's also about taking people like DC is great. They're a fantastic human being. They have some notoriety, but it's also about people that I will give shout outs and retweets to people that you might not have heard of.
Which is, I mean, basically every time you do that,
Uh-huh.
like I immediately click on that person. I like start reading their tweets and then follow them,
Yeah.
right? Like that's, I
Yeah.
mean,
Like
for just that reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
whatever tiny amount of sway that I have in the community, I'll use that. I also hire those people. I also there's a group of last year's Metatopia sponsorship winners that put together a beautiful document about what we can do from the professional angle to support people from marginalized communities that deal with fair pay and deal with what we're willing to do ethically from a sensitivity reading, what we pay for those things. I mean, just a general document about what setting best practices in industry standards.
Where is this document?
Yeah, why doesn't that not?
Yeah, why don't I have this document?
Yeah,
I
so
mean, if you give it to me, I'll just plaster it on the websites.
okay. Well, so they were going through it slowly. I mean, I know that I've signed it. I believe Jason Pitt has also is a part of this, and it's been starting to. DC was they had posted something about it also on their Twitter feed, but I'll send you guys the link.
Yeah.
I think that the things that there are groups of people from marginalized communities, and that's the least important part is they're from a marginalized community, but there are people out there that are out fighting the good fight and doing things. And I think supporting them, agreeing to these things, that's a good first step.
I'm ready to move up from sensitivity reader, though. You're becoming an editor. That's
Content editor.
It's some sort. Yeah, I like content
editing.
something like that. I feel like editing's reader sounds. Again, I don't think reader sounds high enough on the food chain when it comes to book. Editor sounds much like a much stronger.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yeah. Anyway,
That's a show.
That's a good topic.
Yeah,
It's a good show.
we got
Good
through
job.
every single
Good job.
question too.
Good job, Camden.
Yeah.
Good job, Kate.
I like this setup way better. I can high five Camden.
That's right.
I can look at you all without like.
I think you can high five me.
whiplash
I
thing.
think we can robo arm.
Long distance high five.
Yeah, you two are out. We
All
could
right.
chain high fives. That's the other part.
Well, we got about half an hour. Normally we would go to the conversation corner, but we're just going to turn the conversation corner into the after show today. So we'll do
Are
that
we?
again. Yeah, because we got half an hour.
I get it. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it is a full show. That's 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do some Patreon shoutouts.
Sure.
By the way, for those people who want to hear all the other stuff that we talk about, you can just go back us for $1. Misdirected Mark Productions Patreon.
There you go.
You'll get that after show. Patreon shoutouts. Blake Ryan Batman. So Blake, here I have to say this. So Blake recently had to cancel his Patreon, but we're just going to keep him on as a patron because he's Blake Ryan Batman.
Yeah, we're not going to boot out.
Yeah, for personal reasons, and we all understand that these things happen.
Yeah.
And also, just so it's known, one of our patrons decided to throw us some money also for Blake.
Mhm.
So like,
We weren't going to.
he asked to not be named, so I'm not going to say anything.
Yep.
So there's that. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon Barnes. Well, also we're not going to use that money for. We're just going to keep Blake on, and since we're not going to use that money for Blake, we're just going to use that money to back Kickstarters or provide money to game designers of marginalized communities because that was what it was asked for.
Yep.
Also
That I
agreed
like.
about. So we have some money to do that with.
Sweet.
Brandon Barnes, James Sweetland, Jem Pixelscapes Gange, Kevin Menorzak, The Old School DM, The Mad Wizard Sean Merwin, Troy Sandlin, Will Doyle, Zach Goins, Andrew Dacey, V. Waxberg. I didn't even need the phonetic spelling. Not anymore. Who's in the chat room? Hey, man, what's going on? Chris Constantine, Cindy Moore, and Eric Mengi. Thank you so much for being our patrons, and thank you, everyone, so much for listening.
If you are free Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us, in this case, ask us lots of questions.
Yeah.
And if you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the other shows on the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Advantage to Insight, Bone, Stone, and Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, Cypher Speak with Darcy and Troy, the Gnomecast, the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars, Shangu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
You say that so lovely. Like, every time I'm like, man, I was just doing it wrong for like 4 years.
Kinda. Yeah.
Kinda.
After you have checked your design to make sure that you have included safety in all the right places, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via the old school email system, mmp at misdirectedmark.com.
I still get them.
Yeah, and we still the people. I mean, I'm old. I love email. Check out our Facebook group. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is at Misdirected Mark. He's at Camden. He's Robert M. Everson. I'm DNA Phil, and that, of course, is the Light 101.
Where you can get your smooth jazz all day.
Right, we're down
day
2 social
long.
medias. We're losing G Plus, and we got kicked off Tumblr for other reasons.
Well, yeah.
That was your fault.
that was yes. We shouldn't leave Phil in charge of the Tumblr account. What? It's full of
we're going to start up a thing
bros
on
doing
Friendster,
social media.
so If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. And last but not least, Zhengyu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhengyu Hustle.
No, it's not last but not least. We keep forgetting.
Damn
that
it!
though.
Fix the show notes, Chris.
Fix the template.
No, your job is to fix the template, Bob. That's actually your job.
All right, so as soon as I'm done with it, patrons of Misdirected Mark Podcast, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show pre-production show.
Wait, you didn't even say it. It's the bonus experience.
I'm sorry, the bonus experience. Well, I have no copy to read, so I don't want to make
He's
it up.
just
and get it
adrift
wrong.
in the ocean right now.
So search for bonus experience on Patreon and go back them.
There you go.
They're wonderful. I love them
Absolutely.
so much.
Bonus experience is a must. You must go check them out. Pre-production show notes, musical parodies, Pandas Talking Games, bonus outtakes, and other special releases. Yes, that's what you get.
Yes, that is what you get.
Yep.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm, not the cyber arm, but the cyber arm's going to get some work in a second, of Encoded Designs. My drop.
We out. Do 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 do. Welcome to the after show.
The after show.
The after show.
The after show.
Yay!
Not bad. Look at that.
That was a fun show.
That was
That was
good.
good.
That was good. Thank you, Kate.
Hey, chat room, if you didn't realize it, we will just take every question and answer it.
I think Kate thinks we're teasing her. I don't think she understands how much those questions were awesome.
I mean, the last one
They
was
were-
funny
They were hard as hell.
I was like messing up my over under Kate, and she asked that last question. That's the sticky tongue out face on the bottom, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
Those
That's fine.
questions-
We'll still answer it.
Those questions were hard as hell in the best way possible.
Yeah, awesome questions.
I mean, Kate's the person that when I started writing Long Live the Queen, Long Live the
She's never heard the show before. She didn't know what we were doing.
Oh man, it's always weird if you don't. It's always weird if you don't know about the after show. When we forget to tell guests, guests all freak out about that. Yeah, sorry about that, Kate. We should have a warning.
At least
thing
if she's ever on the show, she'll now know.
At least she'll
Yeah.
know now. Yeah. Kate's the person that I was chatting with when I started making Long Live the Queen, and I got into writing it, and I was like, oh my god, Kate, I'm going to wind up with 7 white French women in this game. Like, what the hell do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, Kate knocked some sense into me. She's like, it's literally a story about time travelers coming back in time. She's like, you can just fix this, Phil. She's like, just make it more diverse. And I was like, yeah. I mean, but that was like my big fear was like, oh my god, you're like, people are going to sit down to play this game. There's going to be a table of 5 white French women. What the hell do I do with this? And I tried getting all historical on it. I was like looking like when were colonies established.
No.
Right.
Honey,
And Kate's like, there's time travelers. Stop it. Like just the time travelers did it. And I was like,
You're working too hard, Phil.
I was like way overworking it. And like afterwards I was like, oh yeah, like everybody from around the world wants to get wants to get a piece of this this company.
Paris
So
just becomes the
it's like the United Nations. Like
Mhm.
everybody just comes to Paris now, and now Paris is like this big metropolitan thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but Kate should be a special guest someday.
yeah. She could just.
She needs to
sit
come
somewhere,
down
yeah.
here though. That would be awesome. Like to just get Kate to come down. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, Kate was the one who saved me from it because I was like so excited about the game, and then like I stopped and thought like, what's character generation going to look like? And I was like, oh no, like this is like I've done good because the game's all about women. And then I was like, wait, I don't think I've done good enough. Like,
wait, I see a problem.
and I did because the playtest group that's playing it on Thursday nights, actually, the thing I told them when we made characters, I was like, there will not be a table of white French women.
Mhm.
Like, one of you pick which one of you can be the French woman, and then
Good job, Bob.
like everybody else be something else. And everybody did a good job of it.
That's awesome.
So I feel better about it. It's still getting like 4 sensitivity readers, like or editors, because I'm terrified that I can't do this job.
There's no podcasting at conventions. Like just saying right now. Like at least not like so some people were mentioning like in the chat room. Like you could do MMP live from Breakout. I'm like, no, that's a no. You could do MMP live from QCC. I'm like, no, that's also a no.
Yeah, no. It doesn't work. I mean,
bueno.
it doesn't work
That
like
way
that.
lies madness.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that on a number of reasons. Hauling the gear around doesn't work. You'll never find a quiet enough spot. And most of the time, I mean, we do not travel in a pack. Like we do not all travel like in one herd. Like I see Chris for like 10 minutes at like these cons.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, dude, You having a good time? Okay,
Yeah,
I'll see you
yeah,
later.
yeah, because I mean, I don't really need to hang out with Phil at a convention because I hang out with Phil every Tuesday night.
Exactly.
Hey, dude, nice shirt.
Yeah, nice shirt. Right. That's basically it.
I mean, maybe more this time at Breakout because I don't often see Senda, so
Yes. I mean, it's not that I won't hang out with you. Just
I mean, at some point you might find me sitting on Phil's lap. That usually happens at conventions.
At some point, yeah.
I mean, at some point, everybody winds up sitting on Phil's lap.
That's I mean, that's probably right.
Have you roofied me and I wound up on your lap without knowing it?
I said eventually.
Oh, okay.
It's consensual.
always
It's a long burn.
Always
I
consensual.
appreciate
Phil
it.
would not roofie anyone.
I'm a huge consent guy. I mean, the offer exists. If you
I
want
mean, I
to sit on my
suppose
lap,
if someone
I sit
said,
on
"Hey,
my lap.
Phil, will you please roofie me?"
Yeah.
I suppose that's
I am
consent,
super
but-
snuggly. That is actually true. I am super snuggly.
He's like
you
a
will
giant
fall,
panda bear.
You will fall asleep. I am like a.
Can you just reach behind you and just grab the panda head, just put it on the table?
Panda head, panda head.
Oh,
It's just like a panda head.
I don't think this arm.
Somebody extend the
I got it.
robotic arm. There you go.
No, the robotic arm hurts when I do shit
I
like
just,
that.
I figure you flip it around so that it's for the
Yeah, I think if we look at it, it's not as interesting. Sorry.
Did you just make googly eyes? At
No,
the
he said, "I
panda?
love you"
No.
to the panda head. It was great.
It's a moment between me and the panda head.
See, it matches the tablecloth decor.
Well, it does actually. Yeah, it does.
Oh man. We should probably talk about something. I
Uh-oh.
suppose. Like
We
we can talk
can't-
about. We can't spoil Captain
We
Marvel.
can't
but
spoil
we can talk
Captain
about
Marvel,
Captain
but
Marvel.
did we all go see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
so.
okay.
It's so good.
Then we can't. Then we're barely even talking about it at this
All right.
point. Okay.
Yeah. We could barely even talk about it anyway. I mean, we can't spoil
No,
it.
I mean we go weeks before we
Yeah.
allow one of those to like.
if you sit that far away from the microphone, nobody can hear it.
I know. I want
Well,
to.
I'm so sorry.
I can't wait till the labs. I can't wait till we get labs. Like it'll be so much easier. I like reclining. Yes, I mean Captain Marvel was great. I saw it. I saw it with Bob.
Are you filling out the publisher cost survey, or am I filling out the publisher cost survey?
I don't know. Whichever one of us does it, the other one should look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I want to fill it out, but I also think that Jason released it the week before Breakout.
I know.
I mean, you could have.
I mean, I was.
You could have released, I guess, the week before Gen Con.
Look,
like,
I
I guess
knew-
you could have found
I knew-
a slightly more busy time in my life.
I knew I was asking a lot when I was like, you should fill out your stuff for Origin sometime this week.
Oh, I already flipped you off when that came through. I was like, fuck, Chris. Like, I got so much shit to do to get out the door, and you're like, I did it this morning. I was.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
But it's open for a month. Well, then yeah, we're gonna do it, of course. Like, I'm just not doing it this week.
Just remember to do it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Make
I
yourself
can't
a
wait
note.
to actually fill that out because we actually revised our art payments because we were being a little too simplistic about how we were the rates we will always try to deal with the rates that the artist has.
Mhm.
But we noticed, like when we were working with Matt, that like sometimes we were asking Matt to do even though they were the same size, we were asking Matt to do really complex pieces versus really simple pieces. And John was like, I'm going to go back and revise all of our pricing
It's a really good system.
to actually include complexity of the picture. Like, is this a picture of a one thing in a simple background, or is this a picture of 5 people in the middle of a fight? Like, that's 2 different pay scales because it is more work for the artist. So I really like John did a nice job on it. I mean, I can't take any credit for it. John like showed up and was like, I have revised all of our payment plans for artists going forward, and was like, that is very smart. Like,
Awesome.
yeah, because that was not a thing we were taking into account, and I think we weren't doing our artists any justice in that. We were asking for not a ton of, but we were asking for complex pieces.
Yeah. It's a way better way to do it.
Yep.
Also, made Matt less stressed.
And I mean, we'll always. I mean, that's the thing we do when we scout a new artist is we always ask them for their rates. I mean, because if an artist's rates are way out of what we can pay, like it's nice to note them and put them in the Rolodex, but I'm not going to ask them like, hey, this is what we pay. It's like a quarter of what you charge. Like, I'm not going to ask somebody to work for a quarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my god, they're talking about Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel in the chat room. I love Kamala. I love,
not the movie.
I love,
I'm talking about the
I love
characters.
Kamala Khan.
Oh, Kamala Khan's great.
Like, I've read the first 2 graphic novel collections of hers, like, and listened to some like audio renditions of the graphic novels of her. Like, she's such a good character. I mean, but she also fits into that whole like teen.
No, it's great. Her, Miles,
Yeah.
like that bracket of those teen heroes
Yep.
is fantastic.
and they're so much fun.
I'm reading one right now, and I forget which series it is, where the two of them are working together, Miles and Kamala, and it's great because Miles is grounded. He's supposed to go out on superhero patrol with Kamala, but his grade slipped, and so his maternal grandmother has come to the house to straighten Miles out, and so he's stuck like in his room. She took his phone away, and he's like, "Oh my god! Like, what if the Avengers call or something?"
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good storyline, but yeah, Kamala's great.
Awesome.
Captain Marvel's good. It's a decent movie. I like it a lot.
Yeah,
For a
cool.
lot of reasons.
Really good.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
The Brie Larson is amazing. The movie is good.
Yeah, I will say this: there were people who were like, Brie Larson has like no screen presence.
What?
Like, you could not be more wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you
This
could
is
not.
the worst. This is
Right.
the worst commentary on that movie I've heard. Period.
Those
She's-
are probably the
she's
same
the
people.
first-
Well, those are
complaining
those are the people who are logging in early to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
Look, man.
Right.
So like anytime she's on screen with Fury, like it's the first time I've seen a character in the MCU like have enough presence to actually stand on screen with Fury and not feel like Fury's overshadowing them.
without dick waving, because Tony Stark does it like
Yeah,
in the
but
first
he-
Avengers, but it's
he
just
looks
total
like
dick waving.
Well, he looks like a whiny brat when he does
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, she's amazing. Like, her screen presence is excellent. Yeah, I thought she was. I thought she was fantastic. Like, there are no flat scenes with her. Like, she's good in all her scenes. We got to stop talking about this. Camden hasn't seen it. I don't want to ruin anything for
I
you.
mean, to me, it's not she held her own. Like she was just
Good.
better. She was the most. She was always the most important person on screen whenever she was on screen. Like she had
Yep.
that presence in every scene. So like, and her acting was spot on, top notch.
Yep.
Like she's one of my favorite characters in the MCU.
Yeah, what was it? Yeah, like Ange said, somebody said she could loan you 10 points of charisma and still have over an 18 charisma.
Yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
100% accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
Like,
The other thing I really love, I don't know if you've seen any of the video of her on the red carpet. Like, she's like, there's one where the little girl who was wearing the Captain Marvel outfit interviews her.
I haven't seen the
Oh
interview.
my
I've just
God,
seen the
it's-
stills from that.
It's so good. Like, the little girl asks like, what's her superpower, right? And she's like talking about like, oh, I can eat hot stuff or whatever. And she asked the little girl, and she's like, what about your superpower? And she's like, oh, I don't think I have any. She's like, oh no, you do.
mhm.
She's like, you definitely do.
Nice.
She's like, it's so good. Like, she's doing the same thing that Gal Gadot did with Wonder Woman. Like, she's really embracing the fans. Like, it's really good. Like, she's not just like, she didn't just do the project.
No,
Like, I think she gets the magnitude, like the importance of this role.
she's been active on Twitter too.
Oh yeah,
Just a little bit.
But she did the thing I loved, right? I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when she was like, "I would like to not be interviewed by an endless train of white dudes."
Yeah, I had a white dude basically tell me that he thought that Brie Larson came off as smug and arrogant in her TV interviews about the movie, and I said she's smug and arrogant about that stuff because people keep asking her about, why didn't you smile more, and like all this stupid male sexist bullshit.
Yeah.
That's why she's smug and arrogant when people keep asking her those questions.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, yes, I think she was
It's
great.
assuming she actually is smug and arrogant.
Well, yeah. That's why it comes off.
I think
that way
she's
to those
witty,
people.
right? I think she's
Yeah.
sharp and witty. I
Yeah.
think. If based on anything about how she acted, like her actual acting, like I'm pretty sure she's probably pretty sharp.
Uh-huh.
Like she will get you. Like she will get you in a good way. Anyway, I dug it.
How do we exist in a world where people are calling Brie Larson out for being smug and arrogant, but talking about how great Robert Downey Jr. is and all of his? I mean, like, no hate on him, but
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'll say this, right? I think, when they announced the MCU years and years ago, like Robert Downey Jr. was exactly who Tony Stark should be, right?
Yeah.
Like right down to similar life experience, right? Like Tony Stark had, substance abuse problems in the comic, which they didn't do in the movie.
Mhm.
But, Robert Downey Jr. had that arc. Like, yeah. But yes, no, of course. Like, of course it's the double standard, right? Like Tony Stark's awesome for being snarky and obnoxious, right?
Yep.
But it's a problem if,
Yeah.
it's a problem when Brie Larson is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, fuck you. Like, it's just, I don't know an easier way to surmise that point. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta stop talking about God. It's too okay.
Okay.
Go. You need to just go see it. That's the problem.
I'll go see it.
You need to just go see.
I'm doing nothing this week except for packing up and going to Canada.
Right.
That's all.
That's it. That's
Nothing
it.
big.
We're all doing that.
I did a lot of stuff this week already.
You moved. That's a lot. That
Yeah,
by
you did a lot
itself
of
is a lot of stuff.
You worked a job and you moved and you set up the new digs
Studio.
here.
This was easy. This only took an hour.
Of not sleeping today.
2 hours.
Of not sleeping.
Yeah, I am not at my. I would say that I'm not at my cognitive best at the moment.
What's giving us hope lately? All right, I don't want to be cliche, but seriously, Breakout's giving me hope. I had such a positive experience last year that like I'm just so excited to go back. Like it was the most positive. It was the warmest and honestly the most diverse gaming event I've ever been to. I'm ready to do that all over again.
Yeah. But yeah, Breakout was transformative in a lot of ways for me last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Everything I've done this week is just to get to Breakout. Everything is literally in my way to get to Breakout. Just one task at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Being here. Not necessarily with you guys. I mean, I like that part too.
You people are dead to me, but
yeah, because that's what I said. Thanks for taking my words in the worst possible way ever.
You're welcome. I'm glad you noticed. Sometimes it's nice just to be noticed.
I know, right?
No, it must be
the high five.
It must be nice to be done moving. That last part of a move always sucks when it's like the last lingering things and the cleanup.
Every box is like a rando box.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it's awesome. It's like these boxes are the kitchen. Yep. These boxes are. At the end, it's like I don't know. There's some fucking stuff like whatever. You're just running around the house dumping stuff into.
We literally have boxes that are labeled "box of random stuff."
I had like 6 of those at the end. Like here's a box of random stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's like. I mean, I had like dice, and then like a couple of mugs, and then like a couple of like a jacket.
Yeah, exactly. It's awful.
Yeah, I got yelled at for not unpacking a bunch of boxes at my second apartment, which was the one that was in the duplex with Phil.
Because they crowded up the hallway.
They didn't crowd up the hallway. That hallway was plenty big enough for those boxes, and the reason those boxes weren't unpacked is because they were all books. And I didn't have space for all the books I had. I had so many books.
It was like halfway up the wall of copy paper boxes of books, like just lining the wall.
It was like 3 or 4 long and like 2 or 3 high.
Yeah, but because we often talk about ourselves on the show. Like I have moved back in with Jen, and for those who know me for a very long time, like we've been together on and off for like 13 years, so like it's really nice. We dated for a year again, then we talked a lot about it. Should we be living together again? And then we finally decided that was a good idea, and then we moved back in together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very happy, and being here is actually quite wonderful because living by myself is a terrible thing for me mentally.
Yeah, you're an extrovert. You do terrible. Like I was home alone for the weekend because everybody was away to Taekwondo tournament. And I was like,
yeah, it's not me. Like so, it's cool because it's me and Jen and her sister Bridget. We all live here. And like when I come home, like Bridget works second shift, so even when I come home, like there's somebody around.
Yep.
So like I mean I don't even need to interact with them, but it's just nice to have for me for some reason mentally it's good to have somebody that I know around.
Well, it's not some reason. You're an extrovert. You are actually. It's really bad to leave you alone for any length of time.
I mean, sometimes like my idea of being alone is like you can all be here. I'm gonna go in my room and close the door for like an hour, and then I'm gonna come back out.
But you get super sad the longer you are left without connection to people.
It's true.
I'm like. True. I'm like I don't want to say the opposite because I do actually like hanging out with people, but the first part of that I'm always like, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually later I'm like, I could hang out with some people, kind of, maybe. Like I often make myself do it because I'm afraid like I will totally hermit up if I don't. Like I did, what was it? I could have easily, I was home all day Saturday. I didn't even leave the house. I worked, cooked, cleaned, and did breakout prep. And Sunday morning, I met Bob and Glenn to play some Veil 2020 at Panera. And I could have easily, Glenn gave me the out. He was like, hey, if you're busy, you don't have to come out and play. And I was like, nope, I do. Like, I do. I need to go out among people because while I think it's an awesome idea to just be introvert and hermit, like there's a tipping point on this. So.
Yeah, I kind of did the same thing. I work overnights on Sunday, so I work midnight Sunday to 8 a.m. Sunday, And instead of going to bed, I went out and met those guys to play a game at Panera and have some breakfast and hang out, because I need to do that every once in a while, just to get out and hang out with the people. And because if I just went to bed every Sunday morning after I got off shift and didn't play, or didn't do anything until Sunday night with our normal Sunday game, I mean, it would be okay, but that extra little thing, you know, some more quality time with a couple of my friends, you know, spoons, man.
I'll tell you one thing that hasn't been giving me life, unless Ken, you have something.
No, go ahead.
Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm really hoping that it's not that I'm just burnt out on like the game design stuff, but like every time I had to like sit down and work on that stupid Iron Edit adventure, I'm like, I don't fucking want to do this because I just wanted to like move all my shit.
Well, you know what I mean. That's the priority thing, right? Like the priority thing is like you have to move. It's the most disruptive thing in your life, so it's occupying all of your brain space. Mm-hmm. So when you're like, hey, you need to retask a chunk of you to work on this game, your brain's like, but the boxes, right? Like,
I know, right?
Because it's an open loop. It's not done. So you're like,
and the time that I would be normally taking to recreate, I am not taking to recreate. I am packing boxes and moving them, and then writing game design stuff or planning podcast stuff or whatever.
So when we talk about the psychology of project management, the handling you during the end of that writing was like a very delicate thing. Like I needed to.
I knew what you were doing.
I needed to push on you.
Look, man, I actually went and I said it to Jen and or Effie at different times. I'm like, Phil's really smart. He's not really pressuring me very much. He's like poking me like once every 3 days because he knows better.
Yep. like I know where you are.
Because he knows I'm going to sit down and write 4,000 words one of these days. Yep. And it'll be done, which I did.
It literally is I know where you are. I know what's going to work and what's not going to work, right? What's not going to work is for me to come in and be like, I need you to do this and I need it done by this point. Like
that hardly ever works with me anyway.
I know. Well, I mean, again, when you talk about the psychology of work, like as a professional project manager, you learn how your team works and you adapt how you interact with your team to get them to get work done. So I know with you, like, for instance, there were a couple times where I just poked you and was like, hey, what's up? And I didn't say a word, and then you would say to me, like, you would be like,
sometimes it'd be like 12 hours later, 24 hours later. I'm like, I won't talk to anybody.
Right.
So
but you would just come back and you'd be like, I'm working on the thing. I think I'll be done by the end of the week.
It's because he's that good at project management.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, there is a thing you learn. Like the first thing you learn as a project manager is no one likes the guy with the clipboard.
It's like whenever I want to make changes to the show, I suggest them like 3 weeks or 4 weeks beforehand these days to Phil.
Yes, because I don't actually deal with rapid change.
No.
Yeah. I don't. I'm terrible at it.
Yeah, if he walks in and suddenly everything's different and he doesn't know about it ahead.
That is that's my compulsion part. I did like it's this. It falls under the same reasons I can't go to a restaurant that I haven't already seen the menu for.
Okay,
freaking me out. Really? I didn't know that.
Oh my god, you can't take me to it. Yeah. If I say like, cool, let's go to a restaurant, I've already seen the menu.
Okay. That's why we have that dinner conversation at like 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm already on the page,
just
right?
in case. Yeah.
Senda's got a story where we went out.
It's a hilarious story.
We went to Breakout. I wanted to go to what's that place? The Something Pig. You know what I'm talking about? Like in downtown. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember.
Super popular restaurant. It's just off the square. So we went down there. It was like a 45-minute wait, and it was like, nope, we can't do this. And it was me. It was Senda. Trying to remember who else. Bob and Cat Ramen. And so it was like, okay, cool, let's just go down the street. I'm sure we'll find something. Mm-hmm. And Senda kind of looks at me, and we go down the street, and we wind up going into a place and sitting down later. Senda's like, yeah, I can't believe you were just like, we can just go down the street. And I'm like,
no, I've memorized them.
I was like, I checked all of those online like a week ago. Like, I already know all the places to have eaten. Like,
that is fantastic.
Yeah.
That made me love you just a little bit more.
I am not spontaneous.
Yeah, I saw the look on Senda's face at the time, and it was like, oh, interesting. But Phil had it covered. So
this is the thing that is the most.
And ironically, we went to the place I wanted to go to anyway. I was like, this place looks pretty good. Like everybody's like, yeah, let's go here. I'm like,
It is the thing that is the most different about me and Phil. Is like I will just spontaneously do pretty much anything, and Phil is.
I am not Mr. Spontaneity. No.
The best analogy to
I
explain
need some
me
planning.
is how they explained the Concorde when I was a kid, right? Like when the Concorde wants to reach Paris, you start turning in New York, right? That's me. Like that is the simplest. If you know one thing about Phil, that's the thing you should know. Like no surprises. No surprises. Don't ever do that thing where, hey, can we talk later?
Anybody got
Don't don't even tell me. Never say to me, can we talk later? Because that's all I'll think about for like the next however
what do they
long.
want to talk about?
Yeah.
Oh, so at breakout? No, never mind.
If you tell me what you want to talk about, you can make me wait.
Can we talk about X at time Y?
Yes. Yeah, we absolutely can do that. I need to talk to you later. Oh fuck! My anxiety triples.
So, does it help if I say it'll be fine and just walk away mysteriously?
Half. That's like it's half if you say that.
Does anybody have anything left to say? It's about 10 o'clock.
No.
Don't surprise Phil.
Don't surprise Phil.
I would like to say we love you all. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You folks were amazing tonight. Excellent, I would have to say.
Yeah, good chat room.
And another special thank you to Kate for boosting the.
And
I love when
nailed
the
it.
chat show. I love when the chat room is the fifth person in the show.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Like, it's always my favorite show.
That is my favorite, and I can't wait. We'll get to see Kate.
And most of a bunch of the other people that are in the chat room tonight.
Yes, there'll be many people in the chat room. We will see a breakout.
All right.
Hopefully Eric will make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That'd be great.
Hey, Nor's in the chat room now. I don't know if he was mentioning about jumping a plane while Nor was...
Oh, yeah, they discussed it.
Oh, okay. He wasn't sure if that was just Eric, like, I'm going to go jump a plane and had not discussed it with Nor yet. Like,
all right. You folks all have an amazing, wonderful evening.
Good night, and for those of you Minecrafting, we'll see you at the after show.